So what if I told you that the real secret to learning a new language isn't about spending hours and hours studying? What if it's just 15 minutes a day? We're going to break down a super simple but really powerful habit that kind of flips traditional learning on its head. So forget all that cramming. Let's talk about what actually works. Okay, let me ask you a question, and it's a little weird. Would you ever brush your teeth for 5 hours straight, but only do it once a year? No way, right? That's ridiculous. You do it for just a couple of minutes every single day. Well, it turns out that's the exact same logic we should be using when we learn a language. And that right there brings us to a huge trap that so many of us fall into, what I call the binge study myth. You know, it's that tempting idea that we can just cram all our learning into one massive long session. But honestly, the science of learning tells us our brains just are not wired that way. So let's just look at these two ways of doing things side by side. That one big 5-hour session, it feels completely overwhelming. And let's be honest, it's really ineffective for remembering things long term. But 15 minutes every day, now that is manageable. It's actually powerful. And over time, it just becomes a habit, something you do without thinking, just like brushing your teeth. Okay, so if binge studying is the myth, then what's the secret? Well, it all comes down to one thing: the power of consistency. This is the magic ingredient that turns all those small daily efforts into huge, totally noticeable progress. And here's the thing you've got to understand about consistent practice. It has absolutely nothing to do with motivation. It's about showing up every single day, especially on the days you don't really feel like it. That regularity, that simple act of just doing it, is what builds real, lasting momentum. So why is this method so darn effective? Well, it really boils down to 3 things. First, repetition. Our brains are literally wired to learn from patterns, from seeing and doing the same thing over and over. Second, something called automaticity. The more you do it, the less you have to consciously think about it. And speaking starts to feel so much more fluid and free. And finally, confidence. Every single day you practice, that's a small win. And those little wins, they stack up until you genuinely feel like, hey, I've got this. All right, so the idea makes sense, but you're probably thinking, what should I actually do in those 15 minutes? Well, the good news is it's incredibly simple. Let's break down a 5-part plan you can start using like today. Now, the beauty of this is how flexible it is. You don't have to do all 5 of these every day. Just pick one. Maybe while you're making coffee, you listen to a short podcast. Or you could try shadowing. That's just repeating what you hear, like an echo. You could read a single page from a book, write a few sentences about what you did, or even just talk to yourself out loud. Okay, now I am making breakfast. Every little bit seriously counts. And now for the really exciting part. What does this actually look like over time? What kind of progress can you really expect? The results might feel small from one day to the next, but believe me, they compound in some pretty amazing ways. Let's map out a realistic timeline for you. After just one day, you get that awesome feeling of accomplishment. Maybe you learn one new phrase, like, how's it going? After a week, your brain starts to feel way more comfortable. You might see a sentence and just correctly guess what it means. And by 1 month, English starts to feel familiar. You'll notice you're speaking a little faster and you're not grabbing for the dictionary for every other word. That is real, tangible progress. Of course, we all know the hardest part isn't starting something new, is it? It's sticking with it. Knowing what to do is the easy part. Actually doing it every single day is the real challenge. So, how do we build this thing into a lasting habit? Here are 4 simple but super powerful tips. First, use a calendar and check off the days. Seriously, seeing that chain of check marks is so motivating. Second, set a timer. Committing to just 15 minutes never feels like too much. Third, link it to a habit you already have by doing it at the same time every day. And finally, and this one is crucial, make it fun. If you love to cook, read recipes in English. If you're a music fan, sing along to songs. Enjoyment is the absolute key to consistency. Let me just leave you with this one last thought. Consistency is kind of like planting a tree. You water it every single day, and for a long, long time, it feels like nothing is happening. But you keep going. And then one day, you look up and you realize you're standing in the shade of this huge, strong tree. Your language skills grow in the exact same way. The most important thing you can possibly do is just start. Not tomorrow, not next week, today. It doesn't have to be perfect at all. So my question to you is this. What one small thing are you going to do for your 15 minutes right after you finish watching this?